Hello everyone, this is Michel Sarmento. Welcome to my channel. Do you wonder why people in the past dressed more elegant than nowadays? Why even windows cleaners wore suits? Why people in the past dressed more like a monochromatic sequence patterns like they were all in a holiday party? Well, let's dig into the past and see how the fashion industry got from this to this. Okay, first, let's travel back to the 18th century Industrial Revolution, or perhaps the French Revolution. Let's start by France, since France in those days was the center of art, fashion, and science. In those times, social classes were divided into states. The first state, comprised of the entire clergy, were divided into the upper nobility, or basically the families of the second state, which I will talk about them soon. The lower nobilities were basically the parish and priests, monks, and nuns. The second states were the French nobility, basically royalty other than the king and queen, which basically also the class that administrates the royal justice and civil government. In the third state, there was basically 98% of France's population. They didn't belong to the other groups mentioned. Those were the bourgeoisie and the wage labor and peasants who owned land that could be prosperous if they worked for nobles or wealthier peasants. The third estate all have something in common, which were physical labor and food shortages. And were rare that these estates advanced into higher estates because life in those times was tough. You either were born poor or rich. If you were born poor, you might like to stay like that for the rest of your life. But let's focus on the fashion industry. What does this have to do with the fashion industry? Well, it has to do a lot why people dress the way they dress. Well, during the regime of Louis XIV, as a patron of the arts, literature, and music and beauty in general, being the absolute power, many new strict protocols were created. And fashion was a very important one. People at the court had to dress accordingly to the occasion, and anyone who would like to enter Versailles and see the king cannot enter the chateau before they stop to see a dressmaker, shoemaker, and hairdresser. Because once you enter Versailles, you must be presentable and follow the strict etiquette court protocol. People from the first and second state had access to dressmakers and could afford to dress or change outfits several times per day, as were walking gowns, dining gowns, evening gowns. During the time of Louis XIV, up to the French Revolution, even men have to wear wigs as part of the dress protocol imposed by the king. Fashion was also a way to differentiate the state you belong to in society. So as the old saying says, clothes makes the man.
This is ridiculous.
Madame, it's Versailles.
Most of the peasants have to create their own garments. And if they were lucky, they only have like 2 or 3 pieces for the entire year. Therefore, quality was more important than quantity. They have to create garments that last specifically for the harsh seasons. And how plastic was far from his existence, everyone wore natural fabrics, as cotton, linen, and silk being the preference of the nobility for its exotic beauty and high cost. So compare with today's, everyone dressed very similar and very monochromatic, because fashion was not yet based on pure desire, was based as a political, religious, and social status. What happened next with the arrival of the Industrial Revolution and the fall of the French monarchy, fashion became more affordable and more accessible to the masses. But still dress protocols were kept They were no longer imposed by the government, but more as a social standards and etiquette. During the second part of the Industrial Revolution, factories started to make ready-to-wear clothing sold by catalogs, and in the opening of the first department stores, in the late 19th century, clothing, as I say, became more affordable, but still dressmakers were in demand, and women still create garments at home. Up to the 1920s, people purchased goods that were only necessary. But as technology began to develop and women began to work outside home, fashion had to become more comfortable and easy to wear. And that was thanks to a new fashion designer that totally revolutionized the world of fashion. She was Coco Chanel. Chanel not only made fashion more comfortable by leaving the corset behind, allowing women to adapt to the new industrial and technology age, she also was the first creator of fantasy jewelry. This gave birth to the mass production fashion accessible to all social classes. And of course, not only fashion started to mass produce, but it was a big problem. They didn't know how to sell and appeal to the masses because, as I said before, people were used to buy things they really needed and meant to last, and not just for pure strictly desire. But an Austrian American man was about to change that. A banker named Paul Mazurka of Lehman stated, "People must be trained to desire, to want new things, even before the old have been entirely consumed. Men's desire must overshadow their needs." But how they're going to do that? They turned to an expert who came to the scene and totally changed the way goods were seen by the masses. The Austrian American named Edward Bernays. Bernays knew that after the French Revolution and the Industrial Revolution, masses had finally the freedom to grow economically independent. So after leaving behind the old regime from the government, they have to use physical force to control the masses. They were in a necessity to create a new system that was more permissive and passive without the necessity of using the physical force to control. But it still kept the principle of being in control. So they turned their heads into that psychology and subconscious mind that until today, listen to me, having proved to be much more stronger than and effective than any other form of government. Edward Bernays simply called it propaganda. Propaganda simply means a way to control and manipulate the masses' opinion in democracy. Bernays, being the nephew of Sigmund Freud, founder of the psychoanalysis, knew that in the subconscious mind resides unknown desires, forces that most people aren't aware of it. But if you study them and take advantage of them, you can control pretty much anything in their psyche. Bernays stated that conscious and intelligent manipulation of organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Bernays also stated, "A thing might be desired not for the instinctive worth of uselessness, but because unconsciously come to see it as a symbol of something else they desire but are ashamed to admit it."
In a galaxy, fine car interiors are now within the reach of everyone. And of course, like all Fords, the Galaxy has many built-for-people comforts.
A man buying a car might think he wants it for his purposes of locomotion, but the reality is that he really wants it because it's a symbol of social position and an evidence of his success and one night pleasing his wife or his peers. After World War II and the boom economical growth in the 1950s, Bernays' successful strategies of propaganda helped create a culture based on massive consumerism, allowing the creation of new corporations that could overproduce the high demand of goods that were able to fulfill and please the rapid changes and different desires, caring each time less and caring less time about quality and more about quantity. I want to make a parenthesis before I forget. After the World War II, propaganda was changed to the name of public relationships due to the Nazis used it to control the masses and eventually become demonized by them, so they changed it to public relations.
And propaganda got to be a bad word because of the Germans using it. So what I did was to try to find some other words. So we found the word council on public relations.
So fashion, from being just a need, became a desire to be, to belong, and to express. Now going back to why people dress the way they dress today, is simply because everyone it is trying to fulfill a subconscious desire that many times was simply imposed by marketing strategies using role models they will serve as a triggers to allow suppliers to enter into people's subconscious minds with the two simply principles: sell and control. This is all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to subscribe for more fashion history, travel, trends, and more. This is your host, Michelle Sarmento. Until next time.